Welcome, welcome, infantinis. Welcome back to another episode of talking about the infinite. And today we're actually going to be talking about who is actually creating and running your life. This is a very big topic, a very big question. We're going to try and answer it in 10 minutes. No, we'll try and keep it short and sweet. We're thinking now that we might actually do a bit of a series actually about this topic, because there's little arms and tentacles that go out to talk about different aspects of this. But this is a really big one, because I don't know about you, man, but I hear lots and lots of people, and we were doing it all the time before we sort of started talking about the infinite, about the fact that there is a universe. So we then go into the question of who's actually creating our reality, who's running the show, what's going on, and is it us, human self, us, or is it the universe? So we're going to do a lot of myth busting in this one. It's going to probably push a few buttons. It may be going against some of the stuff that you believe and that you've learnt over the years.
Yes.
But we want to go there anyway. So
well, this is that deeper level of truth that we were talking about in yesterday's video, about the idea that there is another level of freedom and truth and everything else that we're kind of not being shown or not taught, or doesn't get addressed in a lot of other spiritual circles and modalities and things. So that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess as we dive in a little bit deeper, I guess we have to ask the questions that make us look at things a little bit closer. Because when we actually take some of the beliefs that we've got and we put them up to the litmus test, and we really do start dissecting them and looking at them more deeply, we start to find holes in them.
Yeah.
And this is a really classic example of that. So at this stage, most people, and this might be you, are believing that your human self is actually, to some degree, running the show. You go and do things, and you set up a business, or you go and meet someone at a pub, and you end up having a relationship with that person. You get married, you have kids, you have health issues because you haven't eaten properly. So we believe, and rightly so, that the human self actually is creating the story to some degree. So the things that happen, there's cause and effect. So if I do this one thing, then something else is going to happen. There's going to be some sort of result as that plays out. But what happens is we assume that there's separation between your human self and what we're deeming, and most people are calling, the universe. So a lot of us call it God. A lot of us have moved away from the concept of God because it has too many connotations these days, and so we call it the universe, or source, or higher mind. There's so many different terms that we've now created for this thing somewhere. That I keep going up here because that's my relationship to God is up there somewhere. So there's my relationship coming out.
Yeah, even just that term like higher self or higher mind, like it kind of already gives that, I think, most
sense of I'm lower. Yeah, so it's interesting. So as we start to look at some of these concepts that we've created in a lot of the consciousness circles, but I think that's expanded beyond many of the consciousness circles these days, that a lot of society are talking about these sorts of concepts now as well. That there's somehow this separation between you and the universe. We'll call it the universe. And when you really do dissect that, you start to realize that even though we've all been told that we are part of the universe and we're an aspect of God or of the universe, which I really do challenge to ask somebody, what does aspect actually mean? Because I'm still puzzled by that word of like an aspect of that. Like, what actually does that mean? Like a reflection or something?
Yeah.
But yeah, there's just this sense of separation between the two things. And then when we dive in further and we do get under the surface and we start to realize that there is a universe, there is a God, there is one energy, there's one love, and we deem it here as the infinite, then it is everything. The infinite means everything. God means everything. That one love actually means everything.
Yeah, there's no
So
beginning.
that means everything that you're seeing around you, your physical self, your storyline, your job, your relationship, your health, everything has to be part of that.
Yes.
So there is no separation. That is the part that's the illusion, is
Yes.
that we come here believing that there's some sort of separation. And that is part of our journey here. That's, you haven't done anything wrong by believing that. That's
No.
part of our journey here, was to lose ourselves and the truth to then wake up to the truth.
Yes.
That was how our life was going to play out, because that's what we agreed to.
Yes.
So this is part of the awakening process. So again, you haven't done anything wrong, but it's really interesting to dive under the surface of some of these questions and actually start really pulling it apart and going, you can't be separate from the universe or the oneness, because it is everything.
Yes.
And so talking about the universe, your language is giving away that somewhere in your psyche you believe that there's actually a separation, no matter how much you convince yourself that, no, we're one, and, you know, I'm an aspect of that, and, you know, I feel all the oneness and the connectedness of everybody and everything. There's still a degree of separation going on, because the languaging is giving it away.
Yes. Yeah.
That's my feeling.
Yeah. I think, and also going back to the video I think we did a couple of days ago, we talked about the blanket theory, which was taken from a video clip that we showed from 𝗙𝗢𝗙𝗢𝗪. And the idea behind that was that there is nothing outside the blanket. So if you go back and watch that video clip, but it, just to sum that up, what he was talking about was that he used the blanket as the idea of, this is the fabric of consciousness, the fabric of the universe, of everything that exists. And so nothing exists outside of that blanket. So you have a person over here, you have a city over here, you have your job over here, you have your kids over here. Like, it's all part of the one fabric of consciousness when we come at it from that angle, that we're all connected, that we're one interconnected consciousness that's, you know, animating everything in life. So then you can't, this is one of those illusions, I guess, that we kind of buy into, where we have that concept and maybe potential knowingness that we're all connected. Like, maybe you've been delving into some quantum physics or to some spiritual sort of consciousness work now, and you've kind of had that concept sort of presented to you, and it kind of feels true that we're all connected. Or maybe through religion, it doesn't really matter how it was presented to you. It seems to be a pretty common idea that we all kind of know that we're connected and that we affect other people, and you know, we're all part of the one universe, or that type of thing. But then, as Nat's sort of saying, this is where you have to kind of dig beneath the surface a little bit and kind of hold some of these truths up to the litmus test and kind of go, if that is actually true, then why do I keep saying, I'll see if the universe, if that's what the universe wants, it will show up like that, if that's what the universe wants? Or yeah, I'll check in with my guides, or I'll pull an angel card and see what the angels have to say about that. And there's nothing wrong with doing any of those things by any means at all, but it's the perspective that you're coming at them from. So are you still giving your power away by thinking that there's something outside of you that is giving you that guidance, that has more authority than you do over your life, that you have to kind of align with before you can be in the flow with your life? Like, whatever you kind of think, you have to kind of see what your beliefs are around all that too. But when you're coming at it from, I am everything, I am infinite, like we say here, you're coming at it through the eyes of the infinite. So yes, okay, in this 3D world, I am showing up in Mandy, in this body. Nat's over there, she's my sister in the storyline. Yes, all that is kind of true in the 3D reality. As Nat said, that's what we've come here to play out, is to come here to be in a human body. But ultimately, there is a bigger consciousness. And when I say I am infinite, I'm talking about me as the bigger consciousness, not me as a little human Mandy separate in this body, that has an idea of what my story is here and what I do in the world and how I show up and my personality. Not talking about that aspect, talking about the overarching, you know, what religion points to, that God is everything, you know, that idea that there is one energy that's animating everything. That's what we're pointing to, is like when you dig beneath the surface and kind of go, okay, if that's the actual truth, then that means me here in this little human body is also part of that. So I, you know, coming from the infinite perspective through, you know, looking out through the eyes of me now in the world, then everything that I look at is part of me. Like, it can't be outside of me. and to sort of sit with that truth. And it takes a little bit to kind of sit with that truth and for it to land, because it kind of throws everything out the window. Then you start to kind of go, okay, well, if that's true, then I can affect everything around me. Like then that I'm not at the mercy of things happening to me outside of me. And this is not coming from the idea that, okay, now that means I can control it. Like, because a lot of time that's coming from an ego perspective of like trying to want something to happen, and it's not coming from the idea that I am all of consciousness. Because when we come from that perspective, we actually don't really truly care how things unfold, because we know it's actually part of all consciousness. Like it's just part of our journey. It's part of what we're here to experience. There is no good, there is no bad, there's no up, there's no down, there's no right or wrong. It just becomes more of an experience. When we're truly coming from that infinite consciousness of what we are, it becomes about the experience, not about getting a certain outcome, or we have to get a certain outcome, or that we can even actually achieve that too. Like, we're going to address a lot of these different things in the coming days with the videos that we're talking about as well. So there's lots of areas we can go with this one. Yeah.
And I think the interesting part is that it's not you, your human self, because we identify that the ego makes us do this.
Yes.
I am I type thing. The I comes from the ego, which ultimately doesn't exist. Of course, that's part of the infinite as well. Don't forget, everything is part of the infinite, including the ego. So it is a made up story at the end of the day that helps us on our journey to waking up. But there is no I. There is no you in the human form as such. At the highest level of truth, and science has been pointing to this for decades, since Einstein was around, is that everything here in this 3D reality that looks so solid, including your arm and your head and all the rest of it, actually is just energy. And it's vibrating at such a level that we look as if it's there.
Yeah.
We can see it with our human eyes, and it looks real. But in actual fact, it is just a vibration of energy. And if we sped up that energy, it would disappear. So when we go into science and we start to see this side of it, the left brain side of it, we start to realize that we see more glimpses of the truth, I guess, is that, oh, okay, so if that's not real, this 3D human form is not real, then who is actually taking control of my life? And playing everything out. And it's like, it's what Mandy's saying, it is the infinite still. So when you feel like you're affecting things on the human level and you're doing certain things, it's not actually you. It's still the infinite that's running the show.
Human. Yeah.
You'll never escape that, because that's the larger truth that's going on here. Yes. So it does look real. It does look as if we create our own relationships and our own dramas and our own finances. And when you really do go behind the scenes and start looking at things and pulling things apart, it's like the human form has no power whatsoever. Yeah. And that does include your thoughts and your beliefs. They have no power to actually control anything in this 3D reality.
Yeah.
So it's
like it doesn't hold up once you start to. It kind of can, as Nat's saying, that it can appear on the surface that that is what is happening. Like, I think Einstein was the one that said that, reality is nothing but a persistent illusion, or something to that effect. That idea that a very persistent illusion, like it's that it looks so real and it's meant to look real. That's exactly what infinite consciousness was. That was the whole point of it, was so real that we would come down in as an aspect of the consciousness, like separated into billions of parts, to have this experience. It was meant to look real, and we're meant to feel separate, and we're meant to have an ego, and we're meant to feel like we were separate, and that we could control things somehow. And it's like that's all part of the game. But then when you come back to the, awaken to the truth that I am infinite, like I am as the everything I am, the consciousness of everything, then you have to kind of go, well, you start to pull apart all those things that you start to believe. Then it's just like, well, my thoughts actually couldn't create my reality then. Like it just doesn't even hold up. Like, where do the thoughts even come from? They just appear in your head. Like, you don't create them. When you really look at it, they just pop into your head. Same like a dream pops into your head when you go to sleep at night. Like, where did that come from? Like, did you actually create that? Like, you have to kind of get really, like, you as a little human, did you create that? Did you create that thought? did you really feel like that action that you just did manifested that thing out there, or was that already just put there by consciousness? Like, you have to kind of really, it starts to really play with your mind a bit. But
Well,
then when you,
yeah, like if you look at the thoughts, like thoughts are things, it's like that can't actually be true, because otherwise, imagine all the stuff that would be created in this world.
everything we thought
Just
about
in one person's world. I've got some pretty bizarre thoughts going on most of the time, and none of them are pretty negative. But I actually live a pretty good life, so obviously they're not manifesting into reality.
Thank goodness it doesn't work like that, because
Exactly.
imagine what would be happening if you'd have to be super, super conscious of everything you were thinking if that was the case. Like,
Totally.
yeah, so.
Totally. Like and then we sort of go, oh, well, the law of attraction says you've got to keep thinking about it. The more you think about it, the more it will unfold and manifest.
Yeah,
and if it hasn't manifested, it's because you haven't thought about it enough, and you haven't visualized it, you haven't felt it, and all these different things. We start to justify why it hasn't shown up, and why that apparent law is not effective.
Yes.
Like, no, it's not effective because it doesn't work that way. Like it's
not consistent all of the time. That's the thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And it might work some of the time, for sure. Yes, you might create something that you've really thought about. But the fact is, if you've really thought about that thing and it keeps dropping in for you, it was true for you to have that thing in the first place. Yeah. That house or that car or the job or the relationship, whatever. It was already on your path to having that thing. And you were thinking it because it was on your path in the first place. You kept tapping into that part that was coming into your space. So it's working the opposite of what we think. We think we're having a thought, and that creates that thing out there, somewhere out there. Again, separation.
Yeah. There's
somehow a house out there. There's a car out there. And it's like, it's not how reality is structured and how the universe works. So it's like, no, there is infiniteness. And if you're having a thought about something, particularly a persistent thought about something, then it is actually on your path in the first place.
Yeah.
You're tapping into that.
And I think the difference, this will be like another whole thing to go into, so we won't dive into it fully today, but I think the difference too is what you're speaking to, Nat, too, is it's actually more of a feeling that you have rather than a thought. So there might be a thought attached to that feeling.
That's
but more like of a internal
feeling,
knowingness of, yeah, I really want to do this thing, or this thing feels really true for me to do now. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be a big thing. It could be just like, it feels really true for me to go and have that conversation with that person now. Yeah. And so then there might be a thought that it kind of looks like, oh, I'll go and talk to that person. So it appears
and you might play that scenario out in your head a few times even. Yeah.
Yeah. But it feels, it's like a different feeling. This is where you start to kind of just get really in tune, I guess, with how things are actually occurring. When you step back and actually look at what happens, you start to kind of go, oh, did I think that thought, or did it just appear in my mind? Like, and you have to kind of really start pondering some of these things and really be honest with yourself about what happens. Like, can you actually create a thought? So, but with the idea with the feeling coming through is like, it does just appear in your body. Like you just have a sense of like, oh, this feels really true for me. And again, that just appears. You didn't really create that.
Yeah.
But it's like the decision's already been made around that. And then you take the action on that thing. So it does become then about what feels true for you. So, and it will show up then perhaps as a persistent thought in your head that you'll go and do too. But when it's a persistent thought around, oh, I need to go and manage that thing, or I need to go and control that thing, then that's coming from the ego. That's not a consciousness. I mean, it's still coming from consciousness. That's the thing. It's a bigger overall picture. But
you're kidding yourself if you think
from the separation,
control it from a human level, because
you're identifying with the separation aspect of a little human that needs to go out and protect themselves and defend themselves against the world, and can have some control over things that are happening to us. So then there's lots of areas this topic can go, and we will sort of in coming days dive more into this. But there is just that sense, the overarching truth is that everything is consciousness. So therefore, as a little human, we're part of a consciousness too. So, but we don't, as a human, the little separate human, have actual control over anything when we really look at it. And that might kind of sound a little bit scary, especially if you like to control things, which is most people.
Like
freeing, once you really settle into it, but it's actually a really freeing concept, because you go, wow, I actually don't have to do anything.
Don't have to worry about anything.
Yeah, I don't have to improve myself. I don't have to think differently. I don't have to like all these self-improvement things that we go on the track. I mean, Nat and I did all this for like 15 years, so we know exactly what it is.
We know.
But there's always this sense of like, oh, there's somewhere to get to. I need to be a certain way to get this outcome, to have flow in my life, to like, there's all these things you got to do and tick off and think about, and it's just like, actually you don't have to do any of those things. Like, it's actually the shift in the perspective of where it's all coming from. That's the big shift. That's what we talk about here at the Infinite Me, and what our infinite living philosophy is all around, like is all around that. And so we're going to talk a lot about that.
We will talk a lot about that. All right, we'll end it there. I think we've done a few little pond drops, and hopefully we haven't messed your head up too much type thing. These are big concepts. Like if you're not 100% getting this right now, and you don't believe it, that's cool. Like it doesn't matter. It's just inviting you to start looking at some of the beliefs that you have about the bigger picture and how it all fits together, and whether they hold up. It is about digging under the surface, because when you're really brutally honest, you'll start to realize that we've built, unfortunately, our lives on a bunch of lies. And it's not unfortunate, because that's the way it's meant to be played, this game. But now you have an opportunity. Now you're listening to this particular message and any of the other stuff that we put out. You have created this at your infinite level to actually hear these messages right now, because you're ready for them. Yeah. So there's no mistake to that, and to the fact that you're listening to this message right now. And as much as you may not intellectually get it, it doesn't matter. It's still part of you that's resonating. It's feeling into the truth of these messages that we're putting out, and going, does that feel true for me? Not do I think it feels like, does it think true? But does it feel true? And really asking and sitting with that and pondering that. And it's like, yeah, there's a part of me, because when we had first heard these exact same messages, exactly where you're sitting right now, we sat there many, many years ago and went, I don't get all of it, but by God, it feels true. Yeah. So I'm going to sit with it, because there's something in this. Like I want to keep going with this, because there's something pulling me into this message right now.
Yes.
And so, yeah, it starts creating this journey back towards home. And there you go. So, we'll be back tomorrow to have more of a mind-bending conversation.
Just something to do today, like just to, as I said, don't take our word for anything that we say. It's just start to explore for yourself. Just start with something as simple as like, where do my thoughts come from? And just sit with that, ponder that, and just think, do I create my thoughts, or do they just appear in my head? And actually just start playing with that a little bit, and just see what you come up with for yourself, what the truth is underneath all of that. Yep.
There you go. And how freeing it would feel if you didn't have to control your thoughts anymore.
Yes.
Just something else to ponder. Cool. All right. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yep.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye, Patini.